Okay, we're almost there. We have just one last type of chord to talk about, triads in second inversion. And let me just tell you, once you're comfortable playing triads in root position, first and second inversion, the world of music is going to be wide open for you. The possibilities will be endless. The good news here is that since you already know how to invert a root position triad by taking the bottom note of the chord and moving it to the top, and learning how to rearrange the three notes of the chord into a second inversion triad is going to be a piece of cake. All you need to do is take the bottom note from the first inversion triad and bring that note to the top. You'll simply be inverting the chord a second time, hence the name second inversion. Clearly, I'm excited to teach you this, so what do you say we jump in and take a closer look? By now, you know that if you take a chord in root position, like F major, which is made from the notes F, A, and C, and invert it once, or in other words, move its bottom note to the top once, you get a first inversion of the F chord. Now, if you invert the chord again for a second time, moving the bottom note up to the top, you get a second inversion of the F chord. So if I cycle through all three versions of this F major triad, I've got root position with the root on the bottom. I then have first inversion, where the bottom note has now been inverted to the top. And I then have second inversion, where the bottom note has been inverted to the top again. What do you think happens if I invert the bottom note up again, a third time? If you guess third inversion, that would make sense, but no, we actually end up right back in root position, see? Notice how the F, which is the root of the chord, is back on the bottom. This gives us our F major chord in root position, just an octave higher than where we originally started. So that means we only have three versions when playing triads: root position, first inversion, and second inversion. In root position, the root note, or the 1, is at the bottom of the chord. In first inversion, the third of the chord is at the bottom, since the root has been moved to the top. And in second inversion, the fifth of the chord is at the bottom, since the third has been moved to the top. So now that we're familiar with what a second inversion triad is, let's take a look at how it's written in notation. Here we have a G major triad in root position. As we learned in a previous lesson, if we see a triad with all three of its notes stacked together, like this, we know that the triad is in root position. We also learned that its chord symbol will just contain the name of the chord, which in this case is a G. Now we have a G major chord in first inversion. You may recall that one characteristic of first inversion chords in notation is they have a floating note on top and two notes on the bottom. Well, we see that here, and sure enough, it's a first inversion G major chord. Looking at its chord symbol, we learned that the first letter tells us the name of the chord, which in this case is G major. The slash tells us it's in an inversion, and the letter to the right of the slash tells us which note is on the bottom, which in this case is a B. Well, the great thing about a second inversion chord is it's very similar to a first inversion chord. Instead of having just one note floating on top, like you'll find with a first inversion chord, you'll now have two notes floating on top. And guess what? The chord symbol works the same way for second inversion chords as it does for first inversion chords. You have a letter telling you the name of the chord, which in this case is G for G major. That letter is followed by a slash telling you it's in an inversion, and the letter to the right of the slash tells you what the lowest note of the chord is, which in this case is a D. This is exciting because we now know what the three different triad positions look like in notation: root position, first inversion, and second inversion. Now, similar to how first inversion chords are used to help make chord transitions easy, well, by incorporating second inversion chords, we'll now have another option to help make the transitions even easier. Let's look at an example. Imagine I wanted to transition between three chords. F, then C, then G. Well, if I tried to do this with all root position chords, it would look something like this. F major, down to C major, then up to G major. But if I played F in first inversion, C in second inversion, and G in root position, well, did you notice how my hand didn't have to move across the keys nearly as much to play those chords? And did you also notice how each chord shared a note, minimizing how many fingers I had to transition between chords? Check it out. Here's F in first inversion. F, A, C. Thanks to inversions, notice as I move to the next chord, a C major chord, how my index finger gets to stay on this C, allowing me to focus on just moving my other two fingers. And again, thanks to inversions, notice as I move from here to the next chord, a G major chord, how my pinky gets to stay on G, allowing me to focus on just moving my other two fingers to here. That's the beauty of playing with inversions. With these three chord structures, you'll find that transitioning between chords is going to be much easier. Using inversions is way more economical than always playing root position triads. On that note, pun intended, it's time for you to move on and play music using a complete mixture of root position, first inversion, and second inversion chords. I can't wait for you to get this experience. I'm telling you, after you practice playing inversions and get comfortable with them, there are so many possibilities for you. And that really is the beauty of music. What you can learn and what you can do with that learning is endless. It just keeps getting better and better, even for me. Congratulations on getting to this point. You've done a great job. Now, go off and have some fun practicing. We'll see you soon.